back to the Go For It podcast. I'm your host, Steve Harbaugh, and today in the studio is my buddy, my friend, Nick Pittman, or as we all call him, NorEaster Nick, or as I call you, Spot On Nick.
Because I appreciate that.
Because you are, I tell you, there's so many people out there, but you just, you have a passion, and you are spot on. Yeah. We'll talk about that. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You and I have met probably 3-4 years ago through the charity.
Right.
And Nick has been 100% supportive in everything that we do with that. I want to thank you for that. You are venturing out into your own charity that we'll get to.
Yeah.
But through these videos that we've been doing, we've been really talking to people that are successful, in quotes, right? Mm-hmm. that have made it, right? But a lot of the younger folks starting out, they don't know how that started. Like, and I always compare it to a nice home that I built, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's like, oh, this home's beautiful. It's great, shiny countertop. But sometimes it could have started with a muddy foundation.
Absolutely.
And, things like I said, they're not there for that, right? So I really want to dive back and how you got started and really overcoming some failures.
Sure.
And let's just walk through that.
Well, first of all, again, thanks for having me here. It's very nerve-wracking. It's a scary process. I'm afraid of speaking on camera. I have no experience doing this whatsoever. So, I have cold feet sometimes. But now, look, I got my start very young. I was born at a young age in Brigantine. Grew up at the shore. I got sand in my shoes, and it was a tumultuous childhood, I guess I could say. So I was given away as a toddler. My grandmother took me in. I was 2-3 years old. So young I don't even remember it, but she's all I knew. And she was a businesswoman. She was a shark, older Jewish businesswoman who would smile at your face and then stick a knife in your back, and that's just how she did it. And I was always impressed by how she could walk out of a room full of businessmen that were in their 50s and 60s, and she'd always walk out with the best deal. So she taught me everything I needed to know. But when I was 10, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that was very taxing. I didn't want anybody to know what was going on, but it was between her and I and her doctor. Nobody knew what was happening because at that time I was afraid of being taken away by the state. I had a good life. She, took care of me and all that. So I wanted to return it and take care of her. So I had to learn how to balance a checkbook and pay bills and grocery shop and cook and, all stuff that you shouldn't have to do at 10, 11, 12 years old. And then eventually it got to the point where it was too much for me. I had just graduated middle school. I was 12, 13 years old, and I ended up, I went out to ride the train, and I had state troopers looking for me because she called and said that I ran away. And this was something I would do every weekend. When I got home, she was up on her balcony in a nightgown saying that there were ghosts trying to attack her. So at that moment, it was just a wake-up call that I can't handle this anymore. So I ended up moving in with my parents. And my parents are people that were really never in my life growing up. My mother had substance abuse issues. My father, he's a good guy. He wasn't there a whole lot. He was working, and so that was a shock moving into that situation. I slept on the floor. I got my first job pushing carts at ShopRite, and if I wasn't home, I wouldn't eat. I had to pay $100 a week to live there on the floor. So your most impressionable years are your high school, teenage years, and I had all this stuff going on. I was mentally beaten down, and I always thought that maybe I was the problem. But I had TV, and I had the broadcast program started in Brigantine. I started getting into this when I was 6, 7 years old, and it continued into high school. So if it wasn't for that program, I wouldn't have the foundation under my feet for where I would ultimately go today. And I've worked at various TV stations, but here we are today with a company with 3 branches. And I'd like to say that we are at least moderately successful in this new digital age.
And it is never enough for Nick. You want more.
Never.
And I love that about you. I really do, because when you get to that point, you want more and more.
I think that's why we get along so well. It's like, all right, I got here. Now what? I'm 32. I started this professionally at 17, and I'm always just twiddling my thumbs. Like I'll be on vacation on a beach, and the hamster in my brain just doesn't stop. So it's like, all right, well, what do I do next? Who do I contact? What deal can I make? So it's fun.
Cannot relax, right?
No, not at all. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll probably age myself in 20 years and look like I'm 60. But
it's a good thing. I mean, it's one of the things where you keep going because you want to, not because you have to. And
exactly.
I think that's excellent. It's reminded me of a story. I went away in between Christmas and New Year's, and we were trying to buy this island, and right before Christmas, I mean, it was Christmas week,
right?
Or actually in between Christmas and New Year's. And my partner's like, you got to go after these guys. I said, well, they said January 1st. We're fine. No, they're going to sell it to somebody else. We got to do this. So all day I'm pacing around the pool, right, just trying to put this deal together. My wife's looking at me, my kids, right? And my partner, he says, I am so sorry. And I said, Tom, what else would I be doing? A crossword puzzle? I think this is fun. So
it's a challenge.
It is. So that's awesome. So tell us about NorCast Weather and the other. You have 3 branches.
Yeah. So I have to back up a little bit because I was in local TV for a decade. I spent 5 years at an NBC affiliate based out of Atlantic City. Comcast came in, evil Comcast. My internet stinks, by the way. So if you're out there, fix it, all right? They bought NBC. They shut us down because we were in direct competition with NBC 10 in Philly. We were a mom and pop shop. We were very profitable, so it had nothing to do with that. But it was the sheer fact that you could advertise on our air for $40 a spot, and Comcast didn't like that because, why not just make the alternative? You have to pay $200, $300, $400 for, to be on the main channel there. So they closed us down. I thought my career in TV was done. Within a couple months of the station closing, I had a phone call from a local businessman in Millville who was looking to start his own TV station. He was in the equipment rental business. So I was like, that's different. You want to take this jump, but okay. Really good guy. Met with him, gave me his vision, and I signed on. He matched what I was making at ShopRite. At that time, I was a store manager. So, I was making good money, but I didn't want to be in retail. So I signed on with him, and he matched everything, and we built SNJ Today that lasted 4 years. But the problem is when you don't have an affiliation, you're not getting the, brother money. You're not getting, you're not a child of the affiliation anymore, but the major company. So we didn't have that help with salaries and programming and all, and it all came out of his pocket. And then he decided 4 years into it, it was just draining him. So that's when I was at a crossroads. Do I go back into retail, which I didn't want to do? Do I want to go to another market and start over? I didn't want to do that either. So I started reaching out to local businesses, and I said, hey, if I did my own weather broadcasting service, would you sponsor? And I had 4 or 5 customers right off the bat say, yes, we'll do this. And I will always be partial to them. They're still with me, and they get sweetheart pricing because they were there in the beginning, and I will never forget that. So it was actually my husband's idea for the company's name. He was doing a project with Rowan where he wanted me to teach kids about the weather. And this was during COVID. And he called it Norcast Weather School. And then when it came time to come up with a name for the company, because for the longest time, it was just NorEaster Nick, and that was it. But then I said, you know what, we have to create an official company. We had our first studio built in our first home. It was creepy. It was in a Yankee basement, unfinished. I hated being down there late at night. We had the spider crickets. Hated it. But it was the first step. Housing market exploded. We were able to turn a profit on that house and sell it, and we upgrade it. And now we have a nice home that has a separate room for the studio. And look, business has never been better. Started with those 5 or 6 customers. Now we have like 3 dozen, 4 dozen when it comes to the summer. But my business model is all built on trust. People always in the comments will say, how do you get it right most of the time? Nobody's perfect. You can't be 100% right, but I try for at least 95, 90, 95. If I was in the major leagues, I'd be a trillionaire, but the trust factor is huge because if my audience doesn't trust me, then they don't keep coming back. Then you don't have the analytics for the businesses that want to support. So we have 130,000 people on Facebook that follow, but the reach is like 2, 3, 4 million a month, depending on what's going on. So that's what the businesses really look at. And yeah, we're growing leaps and bounds. Production side, my husband runs. We're trying to really grow that side of the business. And then we have a consulting business where we consult for local, municipal governments and landscapers and all that across the country. That's something I never thought I'd get myself into. It's different. I'm still learning it, but that's the challenge, I think. I've been in broadcast my entire life, but learning production, learning consulting, that's where the challenge lies right now.
Tell me about what were you feeling when you said, hey, I'm going to branch off on my own, right? Having that guaranteed paycheck, wherever you were. What did that feel like? Like that decision?
Oh, I was scared as hell. So, honestly, especially when the first time I made the leap of faith to go from ShopRite to the startup company, SNJ, you're used to getting that check every Friday. There was no guarantee that the station was going to work, and ultimately it didn't. But in the process, building my brand and being a recognizable figure in the area is what catapulted me to be in a position to be able to start the company. When the station closed, I think initially for the first day, because I found out we were closing 2 weeks before everybody else. The CFO, we were good friends. We're still good friends to this day. He gave me a heads up on a day that we were leaving for vacation. And that ruined, the first day. But my mind, when I'm backed up into a corner, it's how do I get myself out of this? How do I evaluate the situation and come up with a solution? And we were sitting in a hot tub, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. We have all these contacts. We have these advertisers that I have personal relationships with because I did sales at the station. What if I reach out to all them? So there was that pit in my stomach initially, but as soon as the first person said yes, and it wasn't even a debate, he was just like, yes, I knew it was going to be all right. And I never thought, if you asked me even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was in high school, where do you want to be when you're in your 30s? It was, I want to be on 6 ABC. You couldn't pay me enough to want to be on traditional TV. Having the ability to be your own boss, to do what you want to do, to have final say in every piece of content that goes out there, that's invaluable. And
freedom.
Freedom, yeah, total freedom. In TV, you have producers, you have directors, you have people over you that, right, wrong, or indifferent, they want to influence the way that you put the message out there. And it's absolutely true. I never had to deal with that in local news because my news director trusts me implicitly. But when you get into regional and national, it's all, skewed a certain way. Like if there's an inch of snow, the red graphics go up. It's wall-to-wall coverage over something that you can just dust off. I'm not about that. It's all about trust.
And you are not about that. So I have, Nick and I have done a lot of work together at the Village.
Yeah.
And that's where I met you. And it's an outdoor event, charity event that is dependent on the weather.
Right.
And it's funny, like when I remember we were doing Ticket Spice and they were, it's going to rain on Saturday. And we would close.
Yeah.
This is before, I knew you. And now it's like, no, you come out, you give the forecast. And not only do you say, yeah, it's going to rain Saturday, but you tell me it's going to clear up from 10 to 1.
Exactly.
And you can set your watch to it.
Right.
And I had a huge event. I was calling you crazy.
I remember that.
It was almost like a wedding. Yeah. I had Chevy Chase coming to the Village to do the traditional lighting every year. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, and I looked at the 10-day forecast, which you can't do, right?
No.
And you could. But it said it was going to rain. And you're like, don't worry. And that far out, you were spot on, and it stopped at 1 to 3. Our event started at 5. It stopped at 3. It's amazing.
Yeah,
and,
I remember that.
And I watch you because you have so much passion. You educate clouds, weather patterns, and things like that. It's awesome.
Well, look, people ask me all the time, why? And like I said at the beginning of this, it's about the trust factor. See, my counterparts in Philly, I'm friends with most of them. Good people. Nothing bad to say about anybody. We have a good relationship. However, they work for these conglomerates. They work for these major corporations. If they're wrong, it doesn't matter. If I'm wrong, it affects my business.
You don't get bad comments, do you?
Oh, geez. You know, I love social media. And in this day and age, going up against the trolls out there, when I was younger, it used to really get to me. Now, I've just turned into a troll. And I go back at them with sarcasm. And it's unfortunate because most people don't understand sarcasm. So
you've helped me with that, because you'll circle something and you'll send it back. And then you're like my phone a friend. When I get a comment, I'll send it back to you. And it's just, it works. And it's hard because you're passionate. I'm passionate. We take it personal.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like you're attacking me and I'm just trying to do a good thing here. Whatever.
So you were venturing off into your own charity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What inspired that?
Yeah. So, basic tenet of our company is we want to pay it forward. Having lived in a family on welfare, having been at the very bottom, having, knowing what it's like to want things and not being able to have them, I get, we are not living in a very good economy. We see lines at food banks. It's sad. There are a lot of people that aren't doing well. When Brandon and I first got together, that first Thanksgiving, we didn't have much. We just had each other and we were in a small apartment. We had our Thanksgiving dinner. That was it. But we said we want to provide one deserving family with a hot meal. That following year, we were able to do 2 meals. Then we said, what if we open it up to the public and have people donate? And that's when it exploded. I had a local business say, I will match every donation that comes in. We opened it up to Venmo. Uncle Sam, if you're listening, don't pay attention to that because, that was before all this nonsense. But 2 years ago, we got 10 grand. Last year is when I really decided, let's do this legit. Let's create an actual foundation. Let's do the 501c3 status because we can help a lot of people. Now we've got nearly 20 grand in the bank and we haven't even started promoting anything yet. We have a Walk the Talk 5K coming up. We have a Halloween party that we're going to do like 3 or 4 marquee events a year to fundraise. Last year we helped feed 300 families. This year I want to double that, but I want to go beyond that. I want to make the charity kind of like a fund where we can help people with utilities. They're missing their rent check because of a sickness. You help them out in a tight spot. It's all about giving a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah. And I always thought that obviously, we do the toys and we do the housing, but there's always situational help that there's like that they're in this situation for a period of time. And I think that not that you have to qualify, but maybe you do. I mean, there are other areas where, just like with the toys, they've got to, fill out a form and basically qualify. But I always thought that and I remember being in Chicago. My buddy Dean, we were rolling quarters at this all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. We were just trying to eat as much as we could, but it felt like the worst time of my life. Right. But it really makes you who you are today. And
absolutely.
And one of the things, like one rent payment, one car payment, one just electrical payment could change someone's life completely. So it's awesome that you're doing that, and I get the request. And unfortunately, I said, well, we can't fix your roof. We can't pay because we are definitely, because if you open that up and you're not advertising that's what you do. We do toys and housing.
Yes.
So that's incredible.
And now we have we're so legit. We have the board and we have the monthly board meetings.
That's fun, huh?
I enjoy it. I like the structure of it, but I'm kind of like undiagnosed ADHD, so I'm all over the place. So I do need the people there to right the ship when I veer off. So originally it started off with the food, but then we settled on we're going to help with basic human needs, and we're going to have a vetting process and all that kind of stuff because we thought about it. The first year that we really went hard with the gift cards, I personally delivered them to everybody's house. That was a mistake. It was 3 days before Christmas. I spent all 3 days running around South Jersey. I have no concept of time apparently because I'm like, I'll get it done in an afternoon. Yeah, okay. So now we just mail them out. But I hate to think this way, but there are people out there that aren't as honest. I've pulled up to homes that are like, there's no way.
But it's 1 out of 20, and there's 19 people that do it. That's what
Right,
I say to
right,
myself because I see it too.
Right. And when you realize that, it's it's a fuzzy feeling that you get when you know you're helping people. I've pulled up to people's homes that, your heart breaks. But then there are others that take advantage of, but it's a very small percentage. Most people are genuine, and we're going to keep on with the work and expanding because of the tremendous amount of need.
Are you looking for a location for the food bank?
I mean, right now, not necessarily, because it's all digital based. It's not us providing the food. We find it easiest to just convert the money to $100 gift cards and give those to people.
The reason I ask, as you know, last year you were 1,000% supportive with George's House. We raised a ton of money in one night that I thought we'd have to raise, over the next couple of years. I've been approached by a church, ironically, that we helped do the first remodel for the transitional housing. They are carving a piece of land out that I don't have to pay for.
Wow.
As long as I'll put you on the spot, and you now help them with fundraising for building a food bank, which is awesome. And it's in a very farm
that's cool.
setting. It's going to be that hallmarky feel with George's House, and we're going to do it. And the woman who donated the land to the church, where this parsonage is, there's a lot of farmland. It's going to be a market, and it's going to be named after her. Okay. So I think the George's House and the food bank, which I'm not going to have anything to do with, but I do want to help them.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. I mean, it's just
I would love to do that.
It's a good, and to your point, they're getting 140 people and it's growing and growing every month to go out and get the food. So everybody comes in. So it's just a really good. We're going to have the folks that are in that transitional house. They will be helping out, giving out the food. So it's kind of not just housing; it's almost like a community now.
Yeah, so. I love that kind of stuff. I am 100% on board with that, as long as there's other people involved. Like, I hate to commit to something where I have to do it all, because I know that there are certain things that I can't give 100% of myself to, and I feel bad. And if I can't do it 100%, I'll help promote the heck out of something. But day-to-day operations, it's with everything else going on. It's just
and that's why you have a board. And that's what I rely on my board. It's like, and they tell me, look, point him in a direction, just like you,
exactly,
and I'll take care of the the work. So
I'll shake hands and kiss babies. That's easy, But,
and that's really what you need. You need that attraction. You need that draw. So, and you are writing a book.
I am writing a book. So
and
we're similar there too. Yeah.
Are you allowed to tell a little bit about what the book's about?
Yeah. So it's
what inspired them?
Literally all about my early childhood, and then getting into being the only, or the first, I'm not the only anymore, but the first entity to do this broadcast weather station. Now there's, I think, 6 or 7 of us growing across the country that I'm in contact with, and I'm helping them grow their businesses. But, it's the message that I give to kids. I just came from a school visit. Every encounter I have with impressionable young people, it's always, look, think of your life as you're in a car. Your life is that winding road. You're going to encounter trials and tribulations. You're going to encounter detours and potholes. We live in New Jersey, but the last thing you want to do is hit a U-turn and go back to where you came from. You already experienced that. You have to go off into the unknown. It's about getting out of your comfort zone. I also like to tell them that, you're the only one that has the right to come into your life and tell you what you can and cannot do. You set the bar, nobody else. And I feel like we live in a society sometimes that it's all laid out. You have to do X, Y, Z to get the ABC, or the other way around, whatever. It's a preconceived idea of what success is, when they're not necessarily leading you down the correct path. I have a very unconventional background. I didn't go to a 4-year college. I'm pretty much self-taught. It was the ambition that I had as a kid, and then as an adult. I went to community college for a little bit. Wasn't for me. I was a bookworm in school. Like, I love school. That's not the issue. It was just like, all right, here's the system. Well, to heck with the system. I want to do this my way. So you can do that. But society tells us that you have to do this in order to get here. Or the other thing is, you come from a poor background, well, you're likely going to go on this path. No, you have to get out of that. So the book talks about the experiences that I went through early in life, and how I applied what I learned, how to take all the negativity around you and bottle it up for fuel for success, and the amount of people that are going to hate on you because you're going down an unconventional path, and how you deal with that, and building the business and all that. So I'm excited. It was something I started 4 years ago, and I was so committed to getting it done 4 years ago. It's like a higher power intervened, because if I had finished it, it would be a boring story. With COVID and the business that took off, I think it's much more complete now, and they're looking at getting it sold to a publisher by May.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that, because I stopped mine before I bought the island and did all that, and that's a great ending to my book. It's like I don't know where. You talked earlier about younger people, and you're trying to inspire them to go after. And I think a lot of people, anybody, would look at you and assume where you came from. They would look at me
100%.
and assume where I came from. But I say you have to believe, right? Oh, you have limiting beliefs. But what does that mean, right? So it means meeting somebody like you, or meeting somebody like me, that going back, like, wow, if he can do it, right?
Right.
I believe I can do it. But if you just see that house that's already done, right? It's tough. You really got to get and really interact with people and learn their stories, because that really builds belief.
Exactly. Some of my favorite interactions and school visits are in areas that are a little lower income, because there's a lot of that mentality from other people around that, oh, you're in that situation, you're stuck in that. No lie, every time I go, the students are just looking at me and taking in every word. A little bit different if I'm visiting, and don't get me wrong, I love Stone Harbor, Cherry Hill, but it's a different thing, These kids are genuinely interested, and they're like, wow, I can do all of that. And then when I tell them, look, I lived on the floor, and now we have a company that has 3 branches, and we're successful. It resonates. They're like, wow, I can do that too. Yes, you can do that. Growing up, I didn't have that traditional family. In my mind, I always longed for the white picket fence and the loving family, and I never had that. But I'm finding, as an adult, my friends are my family, and I've been able to create the image that I had in my head for myself all those years ago today.
And you want to be an inspiration, and that's
yeah.
You said something earlier. Your inspiration was watching that television, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't have that,
it would be a completely different thing. And I wish more schools did that vocational learning, the hands-on approach, and really inspired. Brigantine got rid of their program. It was sad, but now they have a new superintendent who actually I'm friends with. He's reached out to me, and he's like, can you help me get this started up again? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because if that program didn't exist, I would have a completely different trajectory, because I never would have been given that opportunity at 17 to start working for a real TV station. So, everything, I'm not a religious guy. I'm more of like a universe and energy type guy.
You have to be.
Yeah, right.
You're in the weather.
Yeah, that's true. Everything has happened. It's lined up just weirdly, the right way to make things happen. Because as things happen, I envision, well, this is where I'm going to be. And I knew to an extent, like 5 years ago when I started the company, well, this is where I want to be in 5 years. And for the most part, here we are. But it doesn't come without, hard work. A lot of younger people feel, and I get it, they're disaffected because the cost of tuition and just all this stuff. And I feel for them. I've never been in that situation. I don't have any tuition. So I don't know what that's like, but I can assure you that, talking to people about how, they're $100,000 in debt, and they're trying to get into these entry-level positions, and they have, there's a need for experience. Well, how do you get experience if you don't get an entry-level job, So it is much harder for younger people today than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's for sure. But I'm thankful that I didn't go that route, but I paid my dues other ways by worrying about life.
It's funny you say that. I go to speak to business schools, and I talk to the business director, and I say, look, I didn't go to college, much like you. And I said, I don't want, I want to be pro-college.
Right.
She goes, no, talk to that, because there's a lot more that aren't going. Right. And you need to be that inspiration to kind of show them that other path. And it's just unfortunate that like you said, it's just set up high school, college,
yes,
go get a job.
Right. and then you're paying your debt off for the rest of your life. It's like a never-ending cycle.
Oh, yeah.
So I made a statement like that at a local college, and people that were on the panel with me looked like they wanted to shoot me. Yeah. It was great.
Well, I've spoken at local colleges too, and I say, hey, I wrote the book. It's about real estate. It's about passive income.
Right.
My first thing I talked about is talking about the difference between active income and passive income. And the professor's looking at me, right? And he's like, well, if that's not the first thing you're talking about,
right?
Why are you talking about real estate entrepreneurship? Like, what is that degree about?
Exactly.
Like,
right.
That should be the number one goal.
Absolutely.
Because I see so many people, they're out there flipping homes, and they're out there, and they have no idea why they're doing it, no direction. So it's education. You really got to get educated why you want to do it before you can do it. But it's amazing. I guess they go over leases, or I don't know what they teach, but it's
interesting.
But you need your own school,
right?
Nick.
Yeah. Maybe we can partner on a school. You know?
So it is awesome that you are out there, you know, and you think that when you become, like, you've done it, right? You want to give back in more ways than
Absolutely.
one. And you're very similar to me. You've got the charity, you want to give back in that kind of a way, but you also want people to know your story, because you want, and I'll tell you a quick story. I read a book by Mark Oat Harrelson. It was a black and white book. My dad had it. I go to the front cover, and it says, goal, refinance house, $9,000. You know, what's that do today, right? $9,000, 100-unit apartment building. So I go to my dad and say, hey, where's our apartment building? Well, your grandfather was a conservative banker. You know, he really didn't want me to do this. You know, how many of those deals, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So he didn't do it, but he had that, you know, positive attitude that, you know, he wanted me to get into it. So I took the book. I moved to Myrtle Beach, sold Panama Jack suntan lotion by the poolside, and I met a guy that was in real estate. So the chapters became alive. He says, yeah. He goes, I live in Allentown. He says, we just took a school. We made it apartments. And I kept that book. I have the book today. When I wrote my book, I looked this guy up, Marco Harrelson. He's 79 years old. I talked to his wife, tracked his cell phone number down. He called me. I was right out in this parking lot.
Wow.
It was like Bon Jovi called me. Why? Because he was the guy.
Yeah.
If I didn't read that book, if you didn't go to that TV, changed my life forever.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't want to change one person's life. I want to change a million people's lives. So is that any advice with that book? It's awesome. Like it's just that one spark that can literally change somebody's life for the better. So, and
it's nothing that happens overnight. Like I've had interns in the past. They'll say, how did you get so well known? Like, how did you build this business? Well, it was 15 years of working every single day, 7 days a week. I just got to the point where I hired an evening meteorologist. I have a weekend guy. So I'm only working, 6 a.m. to 10, 11 o'clock in the morning on a good day. But it took forever to get there. And now we're at a point where I'm investing more time in the business to grow that. And then we want to start getting into real estate and really learning that. Because, if you don't have passive income, you're not set up for retirement.
That's awesome.
I want to be able to do that by the time I'm 50.
And you and I talked about that for a while. And it just talks about, just getting, like, you're making active income. You're making very good active income. But could you imagine sitting on a beach somewhere and it's still coming in automatically? And I say that should be the number one goal when people go to college. Real estate entrepreneurship, that should be day one, first thing out of their mouth.
Absolutely,
because that is the goal.
And it's the game. And the more successful we are as a little family unit, as a company, the more we can give back. I'm not here, like, our lifestyle is paid for. We live in a modest house, our bills are paid. It's nice to have things and travel and whatnot, sure. But I'm not here to be an evil billionaire. I want to help. I want to help people.
How much can you take? Exactly. It's just like you get to the point where, I was forced to do it at a younger age with my dad and all that. I kind of fell into this charity, but it is, you really, and it speaks to the character too, because there's some people that'll be 90 years old, like you said, and try to make that last dollar, right? But if you can, like I always say to younger people, I know where all the puddles are. I'm going to try to help you, guide you through that so you don't step in it.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you know that, why wouldn't you share that with everybody?
Exactly.
And the problem is a lot of people don't. So you got a 4K coming up?
4K? 5K.
5K.
Yeah, 4K is the camera.
I'm going to do the 4K.
You're going to do a 4K.
I'm
You're just going to turn around at some point?
I'm doing the 4K.
Okay.
5K coming up, and that'll be your first fundraiser.
It will be, yeah. We so Tim, obviously, very good friend of both of ours. He's on my board, and it was just the perfect synergy. We're the nonprofit that's going to benefit.
Did you tell the name of the nonprofit? I love the name.
Oh, the NorEaster Nick Rainy Day Project.
Awesome.
A little long, but for short, we're just calling it the Rainy Day Project. And NorEaster Nick, it's not about me. It's just that's what there was already a Rainy Day Project that existed, so we had to put my name into it, but we'll put it in like small letters. But yeah, that's it. And then we have a big Halloween bash. We partnered with one of our good friends that has had this party for years. We're kind of taking it over and turning it into, it was a private party forever. Now we're opening up to the public. We have we partnered with Collingswood Ballroom, and it's going to be like a really nice event. We'll have like 300 people. We'll sell tables for sponsorship money and all that kind of stuff. So we have people in the community that are saying, hey, we run a nonprofit. We would love to have you as the beneficiary of events that we do. So, I'm not of this mindset that, only I can do it the right way. And, no, I want to create partnerships with people in the community. It's about, if you're in a nonprofit, you have a like mindset. You want to help as many people as possible.
And to that point, I know building well.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how to manage a transitional home program.
Right.
So I knew that, and we tried it. Right. And, we prepaid this rent. We didn't think about what happened after the year. So we partnered up with Family Promise, who runs the program very, very well.
Right.
Who didn't really know how to raise money and build.
Perfect.
So we're building the home, partnered up with them to run the program. So that's it is awesome, because if I had to do it all, I couldn't do it. Right.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And you have to understand your weaknesses, and then you find people that are strong in those areas. And that's one of the big things in business that I learned. Like I have my admin assistant, Megan. She was my news director at TV40. We've been close for 15 years. She is very good at the managerial work and, certain things that I'm big picture. I look at the world through rose-colored glasses.
Yep.
My husband gets mad at me all the time because I'm too big picture, but you kind of need people that are detail oriented to help out there.
You need that positive.
Yeah.
That's positive attitude. You got to have that, and that's why you are where you are today. So, well, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
You're welcome.
We hope everyone learned a lot and really inspiration. I mean,
you're going to have to invite me down to Harbaugh Island.
It's going to be Bahmani. They just came up with the name.
Okay.
Bahmani, Bahmani. So, but you will absolutely be down there as we do the Exuma experience.
Wonderful.
So, thank you very much for coming on. And guys, get out there. And I always say, if not now, when? Get out there and go for it.